Good morning, everyone. And have you all got a set of handouts for section 2? Right, so we still have, PPT slides plus supplementary handout of 6 pages. Right, and I hope you still have the section 1 supplementary handout with you because there is a page that we're going to go through today. The summary task I briefly mentioned at the end of yesterday's section. So if you don't have it, I think it's okay. Maybe you already also have the online version. You can later refer to that. We will refer to it a bit later. So we'll refer to that a bit later. After I mentioned the importance of extracting information and some of the skills of summarizing information from articles. Okay, so let's now all look at section 2. Okay, turn to section 2 handout. As you can see, we are focusing on critical reading skills today, at least at the beginning of today's section. And so I would like to ask you briefly, to reflect on your own critical reading skills. And I will also give you at least one article first to go through so as to test your critical reading skills. Well, first of all, please answer these 2 simple questions. So have you ever had any problems when you're asked to read research articles, not just any kinds of articles, research articles, maybe something academic? And if yes, or if not, maybe you're a really good reader, then can you still suggest some strategies to deal with the extremely long texts? Or if you do have difficulties, then how would you deal with them? Can you please write down something or just talk to people around you? These are like some brainstorming tasks. And for people on Zoom, again, feel free to share your opinions if you have any. Okay, so I give you like 2 to 3 minutes, right, to discuss your views with each other. And then later you'll be given a little text and to see how you do with the text. Okay, so answer these 2 questions first. So one more in case you don't really have a lot of experience of reading research articles, you can still talk to people around you. Like imagine if you are to read something like a journal article of 10 pages. And so how would you deal with that? Because I guess in your master's program, you will be asked to do that anyway, no matter what bachelor's program you're at. So feel free to talk to each other. I see some comments on Zoom as well. So later I ask maybe a few of you in the classroom to share your view. Okay, so a quick show of hand first. who thinks that you struggle at least a little bit with research article reading? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, so I definitely ask those who didn't raise your hands. So you must be some really good readers. Okay, for those who just raise your hands, can you suggest like one major difficulty? Let me give you some examples. Maybe it's like the vocabulary are too complex, or it's just too long. I cannot fully concentrate, or something like that. So some brief comments. Let me know. What do you think? Yeah, can you? Yes, you.
I often have difficulties in reading the compound sentences and inverted sentences.
Complicated sentence structures, it would make you find some difficulties, right? Okay, good. Any others?
There are so many terminology in research articles which refused me.
They can be confusing, they can be difficult, and then you have to search for the meaning and then go back and forth with something like that. Yeah, so a lot of you also, I agree with that. Any others?
Sometimes if the texts are too long and complex, it's hard for both of us to identify the main arguments.
You may get distracted. You don't know where the main points should be. Okay, that's a good idea, a good point. Hey, to point out. Hey, one more? Anyone? Maybe?
I don't know the structure of the research articles.
Maybe because they have different structures, right? Sometimes they are pretty standardized, like starting from an introduction and literature review, but sometimes they look rather short, and then they start from the maybe methodology, right? And then you would also have difficulty. Some of you also mentioned on Zoom, you find it difficult to understand the whole structure of the article, and then you would lose your patience when you're asked to read long and boring articles. The word boring is subjective. I don't know. Like, yeah, sometimes if it is like out of our scope, I would also find it really challenging. It's hard to concentrate as well. And then, yeah, terminology, exactly. And then you want to figure out everything. You want to understand every single word's meaning, although you know it's not necessary. All right. So actually, or very valid comments, and then some of you suggested that you could, focus on the topic sentences and the overall structure. Or if there is an abstract, you go through the abstract, and then there are subheadings. You at least go through that to have a brief understanding. Okay, that's good. And then you already know something that is coming ahead. You try to look at something provided for you and have a quick understanding. But what if I only give you one paragraph? Okay, so what can you do? I mean, look at the supplementary handout of today, page 1. You see that was scanned a paragraph in a box for you, activity 1. So this is actually extracted from a full article. It's much longer than this. It's only the very first paragraph of this article called A Woman Like Me. And some of you may have heard of this famous author, a Chinese author. And then if you have read the Chinese version, still go through this article, okay? But then don't tell people around you what's coming next. It's actually best for those who doesn't have any ideas of what that article is about, and then you try to make some logical prediction of what is coming next, right? So that's the point of this activity. I want you to read that. You can have, if you have a highlighter or something like that, get it ready, highlight some key points. And then I also have some prompting questions here for you. I've asked you, can you try to keep guessing what sort of job the woman, the main character of this article, has? Try to make a guess. And based on what phrases or sentences, so your guess must be from somewhere. Right? So what phrases or sentences give you that idea? And then after reading the whole thing, what do you want to know more from this article? So can you please try to keep interacting with the article and then answer these questions? I'll give you time to do it.
对。
So maybe from this article, you kind of get an idea what the woman is like, the personality of this woman. But try to look for hints to see if you can guess what sort of job this woman has. Okay, so I would say the hints are not super obvious, but what I want to hear from you is your logical prediction, from what is given to you. And if you have some ideas, feel free to, again, talk to people around you, and share your views. Your views may not be exactly the same, but then feel free to share. So I give you 2 more minutes to try to go through the whole text and answer all these questions. Okay, so students on Zoom are also free to make guesses. So I see some guesses as well. Or I should have asked, can I know whether anyone has actually read the Chinese version before? No one? Okay, then that's good. You're making guesses totally from scratch. Okay, so I'm going to come over to ask maybe some of you what you think. Actually, there are a couple of answers on Zoom, and the point is, I want to know where you get the hint. So that's more about critical reading. So don't be afraid that you don't get the exact correct answer. So far, okay, when I have been using this text to try it out with students, for those who have never read this text, no one get it right anyway. Okay, so no worries about not being able to get the exact correct answer. But then the guesses could still be logical. So that is what I want to hear from you. So can anyone want to make a try? Okay, cool. Maybe you first, and then you. Okay.
In the coffee shop, the word coffee shop appears twice, and I think maybe she's a barista or coffee related.
Working in a coffee shop. Okay, so anyone also shares the same view? Okay, cool. And you want to say something? Okay.
Well, actually, I think the woman, maybe she does not have a job.
Jobless. Okay.
Yeah, jobless.
And
Yeah,
hint?
the hint is I agree to show him where I work, and that will be the final chapter. I think the final chapter maybe mean there will be no more conversation, no more relationship between the man and the woman. I think the woman is lying to the man.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's my
the
assumption.
Final chapter sounds very negative, right?
Yeah.
That's why you think she could be jobless. Okay, so good guesses. What about you?
The 10th line, I'm a person who has no concept of self-protection, and my words and deeds will always conspire to make me a laughing stock in the eyes of others. So I guess maybe she is a clown. Yes.
So because the self-esteem is very, very low, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And this is also a very logical guess. I guess this kind of feeling or impression it can be found throughout the text, right? Even for the very first sentence, yeah, a woman like me is unsuitable, actually unsuitable for any man's love, right? So yeah, a logical guess as well. Any other brave guesses? Okay. One point.
According to this passage, I think I guess maybe she was just a student who has been dropped out from the school and got a part-time job in the coffee shop. And according to the sentence, I'm a person who has no concept of self-protection and my words, and this will always conspire to make me a laughing stock in the eyes of others. I also think she is a love-struck person.
Okay. Yeah. So love struck and also not having a very stable job and maybe a dropout. Yeah. So I guess the logical parts I can find from your guesses are that you notice like she has a very negative view of herself. Yeah, and then she would think that once she revealed her own job, right, the truth to the other man, then people would not really like her. Okay, then that's why the job could be something right, that she doesn't want to really review. Okay, so let's see what guesses we can find on Zoom. Okay, like waitress in a coffee shop, right, so something similar, or psychologist. Right, is that because there are a lot of emotional wording in there? But to me, she's more like the client, and so somehow she needs to be counseled, something like that. Or comedian, oh, why comedian? And then used to be a teacher or sex worker, prostitute, something like that. Okay, so this is also, I guess, because like unworthy of man's love, yeah, something like this. Actually, I would say if you make guesses that her job is really, really negative, at least to herself. She doesn't really have the courage to review, then you're making a right guess. So the correct answer actually is that she is a cosmetician, doing makeup. Cosmetician for dead people. Yeah, and you can imagine if I work like this and then I say that to you, now your reaction is this. And can you imagine this is like years ago, decades ago in China. And then what view? Yesterday, I deliberately had some discussion about men versus women. Okay, kind of letting you know. Still, even in Western countries, people would have some sort of not as good of perception towards women when compared to men. Okay, then imagine a woman say, okay, I worked as a cosmetician for dead people. Yes, she would be biased. Right? So that's why she feels ashamed of reviewing her own job. Right? So a very interesting article. Okay, so feel free to go. So I don't know, like the first time I read it, it's actually an English version. I guess the Chinese version should be more exciting. Okay? And so maybe you want to know more about the fact that like how the man would respond, right? Or how she would review, or whether she would be telling the truth, or, just like some of you have mentioned, whether she would just tell a lie, right, to cover the truth. Yeah. Okay, so I use this article to let you get a feeling, like when you're reading a story, do you find yourself like you would try to make prediction? Okay? So you would try to follow the storyline. You try to get hints in order to know what's coming next. Try to use a similar strategy. I cannot say the same strategy because a research article is not exactly like a story. But use that kind of feeling, like that you would make guesses. You would try to predict what's coming next. You won't care too much about understanding every single word. As long as the plot is understood, it's fine. And so use all these kinds of feeling to approach a research article. So that is why we have the next task. Later, you can try that out. So the important reading strategy here is step number 1. You can go back to the PowerPoint slide to have a look. So you extract information. You can imagine you yourself as a miner trying to dig gold or diamond from some sort of soil. So you extract something, and then you don't just do it passively because you want to find out something. Right? So you don't just wait to be taught something. So you would actively interact with the information given to you. So you can think whether this information makes sense, or you can even try to challenge the author's point of view. Okay? And then later I'll give you a list of questions that you can think of when you read a research article. And step number 3 is to take something new out of it. Like maybe this article can give you some idea about okay, an example that you can use in your own writing. Or this article, there are some part I will use in the background information in the introduction of my passage. So what I would do is I would actively write that down. Right? So this looks like useful, like as a definition, or just some sort of background. Or this looks like a potential argument I can use. And so these are the things that you can try to make use of. And then step number 4 would, of course, be integrating this information into your own essay. So you don't just blindly read through the article without knowing what to do. When you read, you keep extracting something useful, and then you ask yourself how I would use that in my own writing. Okay, and so these are the 4 steps. And now we have a little bit of a exercise for you. Right, so the supplementary handout, page 2 and 3. You can actually look at it like this. Activity 2. So here is an essay. Again, it's an extracted version. So the whole essay actually consists of like 5 to 6 paragraphs. I've extracted the first 3 paragraphs, and then later give you time to read that. While you're reading, try to identify the writer's stance. And so yesterday we've talked about an argumentative essay should have a stance, right? So the writer has a stance about reality TV, right? So RTV is now really like hot in China and in other countries. Try to, and the next step is to generate themes like facts, positive aspects, and negative aspects of RTV. So what you can do is, of course, you can highlight and then put down notes. Okay? I have already constructed a table for you on page 3 where you can find like a writer's stance. So you can write it down. Maybe the writer is supportive of RTV, or not supportive or neutral. And then facts would be, like something neutral about RTV. Let me give you one example. So paragraph 1, first line. The recent phenomenon of RTV, although hugely popular worldwide, I would say the word, popular or hugely popular worldwide would be a fact. And so you don't exactly know whether the writer thinks RTV is good or not. So he or she is just stating the fact that it's really popular. Right? Then you can put it down here. This is one of the facts. And then anything positive that the writer has mentioned about RTV, you can put it in the next part. And then anything negative, you can also put that here. So please use some time to do it. Then in this way, you won't just read the 3 paragraphs without getting anything. You at least would have generated some answers for the table. Right, so I found a typo in the supplementary handout. Right, so paragraph 2 should start from the main argument against reality TV is a moral one. And so after the first paragraph, like you can see one sentence, like the main argument against reality TV, that already is paragraph 2. So try your best to identify something for each part of the box. The most important thing, of course, is the writer's stance. And so at least get that from the passage. And for students on Zoom, you can also write down your, like whether you have identified the writer's stance from this passage. Okay, so can I ask you guys a question? So whether you think the writer supports or is against the RTV? Against, right? Very good. And where did you get a hint? I keep asking this question a whole lesson, right? So it's like important that you know where you can get a hint from in the article. Which paragraph? Yeah, basically 1, 2, 3, you can get that, right? So if we find the first hint, where is that? Yes, paragraph 1, which sentence? Yeah, this is not the priority of most, something like that, right? And then, do you remember which is the most important sentence in the introduction or even in the entire essay? We called it the what statement? The thesis statement, exactly. And normally, where is the thesis statement? The final sentence of the first paragraph. And so you can highlight that. The thesis statement here in this passage is the essay will first discuss. Remember, we use an objective tone. We don't say I discuss or we discuss. The essay will first discuss various moral issues of the genre, then move to consider how educational and social benefits generally come second, right? It's like a hint, come second to the demands of cheap entertainment, sometimes at the cost of individuals. Right? Can you see that? It's like another example that the author reviews the stance plus showing the overview of the article. And that is why you understand just from the sentence, this essay will first talk about the moral issues and then something get compromised, right? The benefits become compromised. And then what's the use of paragraph 2 and 3? So the first one is an introduction. So paragraph 2 should be, at least in a logical, in an academic essay standard, it should be the first argument, right? So this first argument is related to what? Yes, exactly, the moral issues. And that is why the first sentence, we call it the topic sentence. And so the main argument against RTV is a moral one. And then humiliating, deceptive. Normally, we won't use these words. And that is why they put it in a direct quotation. Okay. And there are some examples, and then some researchers supported the argument. And then paragraph 3, logically, should be another argument. And so against RTV. And this argument is related to what? Yeah, security, danger, yeah. And that is why examples are given, like saying how dangerous the challenges can be like for the contestants. So very obvious, like the structure is this way. And that is how we know about the writer's stance. Okay. And some facts, right? Let's see if you can identify that. Normally, when we talk about something neutral, in an argumentative essay, since they would give comments, their arguments in the body paragraphs, you can find the facts mainly in the introduction. And so when they give out the background information, when they try to discuss the phenomenon. So that is why you can identify phrases like popular worldwide, like one, and then 14.5 million. It's like the audience size, right? And that is neutral, it's a fact. And then a phrase to entertain. Okay? Also in the introduction, line 7, okay? Main aim is to entertain. So these are to let the readers understand what RTV is like nowadays. Okay? So giving enough information about this in order to pave the way for the arguments. As for the positive and negative aspects, feel free to have a look and see if you have highlighted something like that. So when you are preparing for your assignment and then you are asked to read some articles, I would suggest you draw a T-chart like this. I don't want you to write about pros and cons, but when you prepare for a draft, when you organize the ideas of an article, you can always do something like this. So maybe the author has suggested something positive about this phenomenon or this topic, and then something negative about this. Then you collect everything so that maybe potentially I would use some of them in my writing. Okay? So that is to help you organize the ideas better. And obviously you can see that this writer suggested a lot more negative aspects of RTV than positive aspects. And that is how you also get a hint that the writer does not really support RTV, right? And this is your overall stance. We have talked about that. Right? It is clear that the negative aspects are more or greater than the positive impacts. And that is why the writer believes that the RTV shows does more harm than good to society. And in case you're to write an essay on reality TV shows, you now know that this article can help you maybe with two main arguments against RTV. So I guess another issue, although no one mentioned that before, about reading research articles is like you will forget what you have read. You know, like especially after you have read more and more articles and then you forgot the first one and then you have to go back again, and then it's a really torturing loop. Right? So when you try to make some brief notes, I'm not asking you to write a whole essay based on just one article. And so you're just making notes. A T chart would be, you know, left-hand side positive, right-hand side negative. Maybe the writer does not mention anything negative, then just positive, right? Then you can instantly know how you may potentially use this article in the future. And then you don't need to keep going back to this article. Okay? And that is the purpose of making notes. Okay, so finish with this slide. Yeah. And here are some more reading strategies. Please go back to the PowerPoint slide. I have divided that into 3 stages. The first stage is called a pre-reading stage. So actually before reading a text, you have something to do. So number 1, you check what the title is. I remember just now in the chat box, some of you also mentioned, don't forget to check the title. Although it's something obvious, some students would want to just quickly jump to the main part and then they skip everything. Actually, look at the title. They give you the keywords. So what terms the author like to use and what they want to focus on. Check out the title and then any subheadings. At least you understand the flow as well from the subheadings. It's not just about the ideas, you know, how the flow is like. And then any graphs or images, somehow you get an idea very easily, visually. And also you kind of know the tone of the writer. If there are many tables, many statistics, you know, this author may have something like a data set to support what they are saying. If they tend to use, I don't know, like bar charts, pie charts, maybe they have collected data and then they will show it in that way. So you kind of get what they have done and then how they want to present the ideas, or it's like a quantitative paper, it's a qualitative paper. Okay, so also have a quick look at the graphs or images. And then evaluate the reliability of sources. Well, these are to like a few things. Maybe I can show you some tricks here. Have you had any experience looking for journal articles? Not really? Okay, then it's a good idea that we look at that together. You know, like you can, of course, go to EduLibrary database. And another easy source is not going to Google, okay, but Google Scholar. Okay, go to Google Scholar website. Okay, this is also a place where you will find a lot of academic sources. And sometimes it's a better idea to use the university database because they have unlocked more sources for you. But like for generally speaking, you can also go to Google Scholar and then click inside. So what you can do, let me just type out some topics. Say, I want to check whether the higher education is being expanded. And so I'm going to write a topic on the expansion of higher education since there are more and more universities, at least in Hong Kong. And so when you type this, you will get related articles. You know, when articles have the words like expansion, higher education, you see that. Then one thing that you can check is the number of citations. So enlarge that. Can you see that, this part? This is in Chinese. And if I put it in English, they would use the word cited. How many times this article is being cited? So this is how you know whether this is like probably an influential article. Of course, the more times that article is being cited, the more influential it could be. But you also need to check the year of publication. So likely this article is published in 2005. And so it makes sense that it's being cited more times than an article published in 2017, right? And of course, not every article published in 2005 would get that many citations. Right? So it's still something that we can look at. And then we can, of course, arrange the articles chronologically. Right? Then you can see 2025, no one cited, right? Or at least it's not indexed, right? So you can check the time. And then you can also define custom, the timeline. Normally, teachers would expect you to cite things that are more recent. And a common definition of recent, do you know what it is? It's like 10 years, within 10 years. So that's why we can write 2005 to, no, 2015 to 2025. It depends on the topic. But then at least I try to limit it to something recent. And you guarantee your search results would be within the 10 years. So that is one hint. Another hint is check the journal name. You know, like this is, if this is a journal, right, then that is a journal name. Journal of Higher Education. Let's go and check what the exact name is. So you see this one. The journal name is this Journal of Higher Education Policy and Management. And I have not heard of that. So I don't think many people have heard of that, but then I can still see whether this is a good journal. One way to check is to go to Google and then just type this journal name. I just copy that and so I paste. The thing is, you can search for the impact factor. You know, impact factor is like the report card for that journal. So there will be a number given to that journal. The higher the number, the more impactful the journal should be. And let's check. Can you see that? Like this one, Journal of Higher Education Policy, 2024, maybe like it's not available for a 2025 number. So it's 2.4. Okay? And I will give you some ideas. Normally something 2 point something or within 10 is okay for a rather niche journal or topic. It's really hard to get above 10. And so, and of course, some new journals would not have an impact factor even because it's not established yet. Okay? But then it's something that you can have a look at. And some information about impact factor, universities care about that a lot. You know, like they would expect, you know, scholars like you or teachers to be able to publish in journals of higher impact factors. And so the way to get a higher impact factor for the journal is like more people cite the papers, yeah, and then or some really famous scholars publish in their journals. And so this is a way to show whether the journal is of a high quality. And then I can also give you more examples. You can also try to look for articles that you have you are looking at, or in the past. I have published articles in this one, PNAS. It's like I work on the brain science, right? So there's an article that I've published in, so it's 9.1, it's a pretty good one. And then let me show you some top journals. Okay, so, you know, people actually fight to publish in 2 journals. One is Nature and one is Science. Okay, so let's see how high the impact factors are, and you will know what I mean. Okay, so Nature, impact factor, 50 something. And my PhD supervisor published that, and then she very quickly got promoted. You know, like just one example, right? So that is how people care about the impact factor as well. And that's Science. So 49 point something, right? So kind of equally high. And so Nature and Science, they are multidisciplinary. And that is why it's higher. It attracts more audience. But for niche journals, it's okay to have like within 10. Yeah, so at least you know someone will publish there, okay, and then it has certain influence. Okay. And so check the impact factor, check how many people have cited to journals. And then another way, of course, that you can search for really useful journals would be like use double quotation marks. And then you make sure you get the keywords, like I want to get expansion of higher education, okay, only, I don't know, in Southeast Asia. Okay. Just an example, I want to show 2 keywords, then I put both keywords in double quotation mark. Then that is how you can ensure you get a better result. Okay, so there are pretty much a lot of tricks there. And then these are some examples I want to show you, like the reading strategies, even before you read the text. Then you know, okay, I'm reading a pretty decent journal, many people cited it, okay, and then I can keep going, okay, to the second stage while reading. So this is what you have just done. Identify the writer's stance and arguments. Always try to do that before you come up with really specific example or evidence for the article. Yeah, because the writer's stance and arguments would be the most useful for your own assignments or your own papers. And then another important thing you need to do is to distinguish between facts and opinions. I just now give you some examples of facts, right? So they are entirely neutral, and no one would argue against it. I mean, RTV is popular. RTV has a certain number of audience. So this is a fact. And what is an opinion? Well, maybe I can give one example, like Education University is one of the universities in Hong Kong. So is this a fact or opinion? A fact, right? Even when I say, I think Education University is one of the universities, still a fact, right? So I'm just saying, I think, or maybe I'm not too sure. And then what is an opinion? Okay, so I'm not too sure if I should say that. And then, yeah, it's my opinion. So Education University is the best university in Hong Kong. Yeah, so it's an opinion. You can agree, you can disagree, right? So opinion is like that. I want you to understand. So when an author presents an opinion, it's more like an argument. You can disagree. You don't need to just say, okay, this author said that, and then you keep it in that way. Now, you can use it as a counter argument, or you don't like it, you can say, according to this author, he said it like this. However, actually many others disagree with that. Okay, so you can actually challenge. Okay, so that is really important, that you make use of the opinions to construct your views. And that is why, even if all of you here, like more than 100 students in this class, or even 200 students, are given one topic, all of your papers will look different. Because you will use different sources, you would use the sources differently. And that is how you differentiate yourself, differentiate your own paper from other people's papers. So don't just blindly make use of this source said that, another source said that. Yesterday, we talked about literature review, and I told you, don't just report what the writers have said. You can try to make use of them to construct your own arguments. Of course, I'm not asking you to say it in a subjective way. You still use academic tone, but then you make use of them to construct your arguments. And then infer something that is not stated clearly. It's like to deduce the meaning. And then after you read, you still have something to do. That is, consider how relevant the text is to your own task. That is how you make use of the notes, like the T-chart, to see whether you can use them to your own task. And then feel free to agree and disagree with what you have read. And then these are also the notes that you can make. And then so next time you read your own notes, you know, okay, so this text actually is not fully reliable, or this text has something that I can challenge. Okay, so make notes like this. And consider what is missing. This is also important because that is how you would try to find another article to fill in the gap. So maybe from this text, I don't get this. Okay, so I need to look for another article to supplement this particular argument. Okay, so here is a checklist that I would give you. Okay, so keep this one. Okay, I mean, I don't read that out like one by one, but when you're reading an article, see whether you can find them. Okay, number one is like the background, and then number two is like the key concepts and theories. And number 3, the main arguments. And then number 4, super important. So your evaluation of the arguments. Right? Do you agree with the author's viewpoint? And then check the language features, check what is being useful. And so when you're reading, you are not just passively receiving information. You have a lot to do. Okay, so keep this checklist and then use that to make notes for your future reading articles. Now, okay, it would be, since you're good at reading, I assume, right? And we would try to put it to writing. So one important technique here is summarizing. Why do you need to learn how to summarize? Because in your academic studies, especially at the master's level, you probably often need to present details to your fellow teachers and classmates in both written and spoken form. So maybe in a little presentation or in a written assignment. So that's why you need to know how to select, extract, and reorganize the important information, and then keep all the central ones. And here are some basic summarizing skills. The don'ts would be, don't include unnecessary details. Normally, we don't keep very, very concrete examples. And you don't include any of your opinions if you're just asked to summarize. And you don't repeat phrases word for word. Even when people ask you to summarize, they don't just ask you to extract the exact wording. This is plagiarism, always remember that. The university cares a lot about this. Still rephrase the ideas a little bit. And then the do's would be only note the most important points. And then you can read the text multiple times to ensure you don't miss anything. My strategy is I read it to ensure I kind of understand. I will put the text away. I try not to look at that while I'm writing, because that is the really useful way that I will ensure myself to reuse my own words. If you keep reading the text, you will find it like they are too good to be true. I cannot write any better. Right? Then you would just use the same words. So once you understand something and then you want to use it, put it away. You can always look at that later after you finish writing, right, to check whether you miss anything. So when you're writing, don't look at the original text. Okay? So you can try that later on. And then paraphrase, use your own words. Finally, keep it concise. So if you still remember, actually at the end of yesterday's section, I have asked you to summarize a text, right? So if you have that with you, can you please look at that? And now you can make use of the reading strategies we have just gone through today. So the supplementary handout from yesterday's section, page 4. It's still about RTV. So that is actually from an article, which is also about RTV. I deliberately used that. And then that report is titled Potential Issues in Children's Viewing of RTV. And then there are sections 2, the overall section, and then 2.1, 2.2. When you're reading, remember, keep highlighting the important points. And if you can identify the writer's overall stance, you can mark that down. And I want you to try to summarize what you have read in around 100 words. That would be like 4 to 5 sentences, right? Not a lot. And of course, it can be a little more than that. But even if you can't do it, I think I will give you around 15 minutes for that, up to 10:30. I will still show you a suggested answer. Then you can compare your summary against the suggested answer to see whether you can get the main information. Okay, so try to challenge yourself to do it. Use around 5 minutes to go through it, highlight the important information, 10 minutes to write up a little summary. Okay, so please do it now. So let me give you some very quick suggestion. In your summary, your very first sentence can be like an overview. Imagine like your friends have not read this. Your first sentence should signal what this entire thing is about, right? So the a topic sentence, a nice topic sentence summarizing everything you're going to write. And then make sure you use some connecting words, because there is obviously like maybe 2 points, 2 issues. Use connecting words to signal you're talking about the first one and the second one. And the third thing I want you to pay attention to is try to paraphrase. Try not to use the exact wording as the subheadings or anything there, right? Because unlike the term reality TV, you don't need to paraphrase. But then for the other common English words, try to rephrase it a little bit. So it's really good that some of you actually finished the task. After I mentioned it yesterday, so I guess some of you have finished it pretty quickly, or like you at least modified after using what the strategies that we have talked about today. Right? And some of you are still working on that, right? And no worries. Perhaps let's have a 15-minute break now. Okay, for those who need maybe a little more time, you can do it right, during the break. And we'll come back at 10:45. Okay, and then I will show you a suggested answer. Okay. Okay, so let's resume our section. And I guess most of you have at least given it a try, right? Like to have gone through the text and understand what this report is about, what the section of the report is about. And obviously, it's like don't miss out the subheadings. Right? The 3 subheadings have given you really important information of the whole report. It's about potential issues. And then one of them is like the inability to distinguish between the 2 things. And then the second one is the unlimited access. And that is why here is a suggested summary. If you want to, feel free to take a screenshot and to learn something from it. Of course, you can write even better than this one, but this is how you may see some important elements that I will explain. The first sentence is like a topic sentence of the paragraph, like starting by saying there are 2 problems, right? So 2 problems caused by children's viewing of reality TV, or like we put it in a short form. But when you put it in a short form, hopefully you give a full form first. Merit immediate public and government's attention. The term merit someone's attention is rather formal, right? Something you can learn from. It's like deserve someone's attention, yeah, and or it's worthwhile to be paid some attention to. So merit immediate public and government's attention. And so it's really clear there are 2 problems. And for the topic sentence, we don't need to have too much elaboration, especially this is a rather short paragraph. Okay, so we can instantly jump to the first problem. And you can see that we have a signaling phrase. The first problem concerns this. Yeah, concerns means it's about this. Concerns something. So the failure of young children to, we try to use a different word. Instead of distinguish between A and B, we can say discriminate A from B. Here, discriminate means to differentiate. Right? So the word discriminate has at least 2 different meanings. Discriminate reality from fantasy. And they trust that our TV shows are largely real and unplanned. So the words in red are the words that we try to lessen the extent of the claim. And we try not to make the claims too absolute, too extreme. So I don't want to exaggerate by saying all TV shows are unplanned, right? All of them are bad. So they are largely real and unplanned, meaning maybe 80%, 90%, and neglect the controlled reality. And then they might, I mean, the young children might consequentially is like as a consequence. And so another formal word, take up the violent language, aggressive behavior, and other common conceptions from the shows. Since this is a summary task, you can see that we skip all the details, like the 75%, 50%, what people said about watching and not watching the shows. These are the examples we can skip. And then another signaling phrase is that the second problem is related to. So we try to use a different word, is related to, instead of concerns. A vast amount of unsupervised or unmonitored viewing. You remember, amount of is followed by something uncountable. Okay, so the unmonitored viewing of RTV among teenagers in the US. And then the situation is alarming, and yet parents do not seem to be aware of it. Well, when you read the passage, they may make the claims really strong. That is their stance. But when we are writing, we always try to sound academic. Okay? And that is why I won't fully agree with what they say. I don't think all parents are ignorant. Okay? So that is why we have the words like this, do not seem to be aware of. And of course, you can still add a concluding sentence if it is relevant, since it's already around 100 words, so we stop it here. And this can already make one paragraph, like if you're writing on RTV and then you want to discuss the issues. So by using that, you're summarizing the arguments and then you use it. Of course, you need citations if it is a real case. So hopefully you have some ideas of like critical reading and then how to apply them in your writing. And now, in the second section of today, I want to talk about another thing. Okay, so as to let you not read that much throughout the whole section, but then it's still important to your writing techniques. That is about the structure. Remember at the beginning, some of you also mentioned you struggle with the structure of research articles. Actually, for academic papers, it's pretty standardized. Right? They always start from an introduction, and then in the introduction, there are some standardized elements as well. So I want to talk about that so that you have some quick ideas, right? And in the future, you approach any research papers. So here is like a warm-up activity. In the PowerPoint slides, slide 13, and you will see this instruction. And then from slide 14 to slide 17, you see 4 possible structures of an academic essay. I want you to go through them and then decide which structure is the most effective and perhaps which one is the worst. Right? And feel free to talk to your neighbors and see if your views align with each other and briefly explain your choice. Right? So look at the 4 and then talk about that. Okay, tell people around you which one is the best and which one is the worst. Okay, so I see some answers on Zoom. Okay, good answers. And what about in the classroom here? Can I listen to what you have identified? Which one is the best according to your view? 4. Okay, no disagreement. Okay, you can challenge. I am really open to that. And then which one is the worst? Okay, so I here seem to say structure 3 is the worst, and then on Zoom, most people say structure 2. Can I like understand why you think structure 3 is not as good? Any ideas? Actually, it's correct. Like structure 4 is the best. Okay, so I won't really recommend you to write in the other ways if you have enough word count. You know, like and why structure 3 you think is not really effective? Something is just missing, right? And actually, let's have a look. For structure 1, at least we see the framework, like the introduction, like body, and concluding paragraph. Right? For body paragraphs, we have an S, right? Meaning you can have more than one. But then if you write it in this way, it would sound rather repetitive, right? The author's view is just being repeated at the beginning and at the end. And then in the middle part, there are supporting materials. It seems that it's just one big paragraph being separated into smaller paragraphs. And then structure 2, right, is like missing the beginning and the end. You're just throwing out your ideas. It's like in a conversation, like someone asks you what you think, and then you instantly talk about the first point and the second point. Okay, so you don't really have a nice wrap up. You know that in academic essays, we always think of, at least I always think of that as like a hamburger. You have a piece of bread at the top, and then something in the middle. You can add more ingredients if you want to. And then at the bottom, you still have a piece of bread, right, to wrap up everything. Okay, so that's a nice word. That's also about the cohesion, coherence of the whole thing. And then structure 3, well, is incomplete, right? Because you only give a preview of the main ideas without giving any background information to pave the way. Like people don't know why they need to care about your passage, and you haven't given enough information, like maybe there is an ongoing debate. So we're going to talk about the arguments and also my view. Okay? People don't know that, and you instantly jump to the fact that I'm going to talk about them. And so something is missing. And then at the end, again, just summarize without giving something for people to think of. Right? So that's why structure 4 is the most complete. You first provide a context, right, so that people know like what they are expecting, right, what they should expect. And then your view, if it is an argumentative essay, and also the preview of the main ideas. And then in the body paragraphs, why it is still in green? Because they are aligned. And so they should align with each other. The body paragraphs, topic sentences, and concluding sentences should be like somehow referring back to the preview of the main ideas in the introduction. And then they should also be reinforced in the summary of main ideas in your conclusion. Okay, so these are the things that should be repeated. And that is why in an argumentative essay, you see that the writer's stance is being repeated in just a different way. Like at the end, after you have summarized everything, you restate the author's point of view. It's like given that there are so many benefits, so that is why I think something should be promoted. Okay, so it's like a view being reinforced, or you would suggest. Okay, so that's why future research should work more on this. Okay, and that is what you probably see in the conclusion of academic papers. And then here is the basic structure. Like showing the topic and then body, conclusion. Well, just repeating structure 4. And here is a sample introduction. Can you please look at that? It's really simple, okay, about the topic globalization. And there are some annotations on the left-hand side showing you what the elements are. Okay, so please look at that first. Okay, so what this introduction aims to show is that an introduction is not a simple one-sentence introduction. Some students will think in this way. So just starting by saying this essay will talk about that. We always need to give some sort of background information. If a definition is needed, then you can add that. right? If it is not needed, then it's okay. Yeah, so some background. And then actually the green part and the final purple part can be reversed. Okay? You can mention, although there are a number of adverse effects, positive impacts can be identified, or positive impacts greatly outweigh the negative. You can mention that first. This is your view, and then say what this essay is about. So the overview part and the stance part, okay, I mean, the order can be different. Okay, it's okay. And then the green part signals the overview of the essay. Okay, so telling people what this essay is going to be about. So you'll understand there are three parts. And I actually, for this one, would think you can just combine. You can say this essay will address the economic impacts, comma, environment, or just the economic, comma, environmental, comma, and the cultural impacts of globalization. You can keep it as concise as that, depending on the word count, right? And then now you kind of know, it's like background, and then at the end, thesis statement with the overview and also a stance. So can you use that idea to rearrange the sentence order in this introduction? So I've given you 6 sentences here. Okay? Try to arrange them in a proper order so that they would make sense in an introduction. And this is about prepositions. Okay? So like the use of prepositions in English. I want you to write your answer like this. Say you think sentence 6, for example, should come first, and then 5 is the next one. Then you write 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, something like this. And I walk around and see whether you get the correct answers. It's easier to check. Okay, so just now I was walking around the classroom and checked the answers. Okay, so for like 4 in the classroom, got it all correct. And then on Zoom, 3 of you got it correct. Got it all correct, I mean. So I keep saying almost. It's like 1 to 2 sentences got reversed. Right? So that is why we need to check the sequence as well. But I think if you hear my comments like almost, you kind of get the flow. You know, like a lot of you actually start think the first sentence start with number 3, but then it should start with number 6. Yeah, and because it provides a really important background, like when English is not the person's first language, how tricky prepositions can be. We don't just define prepositions. Yeah, so why would I understand why I need to define it? And after you mention number 6, number 3 makes perfect sense. You know, number 3 says they are small connecting words that do not necessarily exist in other languages. And what do you mean by other languages if you haven't mentioned, you know, English, right? So 6 needs to be the first one. And then 3 would come naturally afterwards. So that is why the answer should be 6, 3, 1, and then 4 to 5. Yes, exactly. And here, I've given you some explanation as well. So this is sentence 6, by the way. So using prepositions correctly in English is very difficult. You let people know why you write this topic. If English is not a person's first language, and this is the context. And then, so prepositions are small connecting words that do not necessarily exist in other languages. And so such language differences, so when you say such, there must be some differences that you have mentioned. Make teaching in this area very difficult. So you explain the issue, you explain the problem. And that makes sense to start talking about some teaching methods to deal with that. So the one popular teaching method relies on students learning combination. Another method, so again, the word signals, right? This sentence should come after that. Another method would be another solution. The last one, you should get it correct. Right? So this sentence, sentence 5 should be at the end because that is a very important thesis statement, right? So this essay, which follows, gives a brief history of the prepositional theory and then compares the 2 approaches. And then the author stance is also here, right? So arguing that a cognitive linguistic approach would be more effective. So here the thesis statement suggests what the essay would talk about and also the stance of the writer. And after that, you will see that in the PowerPoint slide, we have explained a little bit again what a thesis statement should be like. So finish with this slide. Okay, let me give you 10 more seconds to mark down the points if you need to. Okay, so here, a thesis statement should review the main idea, and it's really important. It's at the end of the introduction. If there is an opinion, then keep that. Okay, and the thesis statement, one more thing, right? The importance of the thesis statement is that that will be a statement that can be discussed and elaborated further in the body of the essay. So you can see that the next part, we're going to talk about topic sentences. The topic sentences will be related somehow to the thesis statement again. Okay, and now let's look at the topic sentence. So there is a balance you need to strike. This topic sentence should clearly support the thesis statement. Say you think that a certain approach, like online learning, should be promoted because of 3 reasons. Like the first reason is like for students' physical health because they do not need to wake up that early. Okay, then that is one argument. Like that is your topic sentence, right? So you need to mention like the physical health first. And then it's usually at the beginning of a body paragraph. And then the connecting details afterwards would be also related to that. And then the last 2 points are really important. Can you please highlight them? So you need to make sure your topic sentence of the paragraph is not too general. You don't just say doing exercise is good or online learning is bad. You don't just say that. Okay? So you need to clearly review what argument you're going to talk about in this paragraph. But then when you want to mention that argument, you need to be careful not to give too much detail. Yeah, so the topic sentence should not be too specific either. You don't say exercise decreases the chance of developing diabetes, heart disease, asthma, etc. Because I told you to give more details and then you say everything. And so these would be examples you can explain in the main part of the body paragraph. So here you would rather say exercise, maybe like improves a person's physical and mental health. So that is like somewhere in the middle, not too general and not too specific. Again, if we go back to the summary, and so although it's not really about a topic sentence, but I think you can imagine it in this way. Remember, I give you the suggested summary for the RTV shows. So in this paragraph, you talk about 2 problems and you give details about that. The topic sentence can be something like this: 2 problems caused by children's viewing of RTV merit people's attention. So I understand instantly this paragraph is about problems related to RTV, and you're going to talk about 2 of them. But I don't need to give all the details about the 2 problems. Okay? So that is like the balance you try to strike. And now let's do a simple exercise before you're given the chance to try to write up your own topic sentence. So from slide 22 to slide 25, no, 24, right, 22 to 24, there are 5 groups of sentences. Try to identify the most suitable topic sentence for each group. And actually, the interesting thing is the other 3 sentences will be like the supporting sentences in the same paragraph. So the one you choose should be broad enough to cover the information of the other 3 sentences. Right, so please give it a try. Write down the letter for each group. Okay, so have you finished the 5 groups? That's good. And let's check the answers. For group 1, well, what is your answer? D. Okay, yes. Most of you actually got it as D. Well, some of you may think B is the answer. Well, actually, B is part of D. Yeah, so you can see that B mentions hiking trails, right? And actually, D says hikers all over Utah. It's like different places of Utah access hiking trails and enjoy nature. And so these parts are being mentioned in A, B, and C. And so here actually you can learn a little bit from the answers, right? To see how much information you need to give in a topic sentence. And then let's look at group 2. Group 2, what is your answer? B. Yes, I no disagreement. So New York is a culturally diverse city. Yeah, so the term culturally diverse can embrace things like different languages, different religions, and different food. Okay. And what about group 3? C. Okay, all correct. And so technology helps people learn in today's world. And so learning would cover, like, first of all, technology covers websites like YouTube and then computer programs and the educational apps. And then the learning part covers the, video tutorials and then the new concepts and also children learning at school, right? One thing I want to highlight, okay, so this exercise is like for you to understand like what is a topic sentence and what are the supporting details. If you are to write a topic sentence in the academic setting, do not use the word things. Yeah, so remember what I've mentioned here. So just put a bracket, okay, for the word things. You can simply say technology helps people learn. Yeah, it's good enough. And then group 4, what is your answer? B. Very good. Yes, B. B for Bravo. And there are many fun activities for students at this university. Right? So, and the examples are like museums, concerts, and also clubs. In group 5, the last one, your answer is D. Yes. Right. Many different memories can be connected to smells. And then you can see like maybe places, cologne, right, and also foods. So now you know what a topic sentence is like. Okay? Are you ready to write one by yourself? Okay? We deliberately choose something very much daily life. Yeah, so you definitely have some ideas. It's not exactly academic. So for this part, I want to test your skill of writing a topic sentence. It's not too much about academic writing even. So I want to see whether you can strike the balance between giving enough information. So there are 3 parts. Well, you can make use of the supplementary handout if you want more space, or you can use your tablet. It's also fine. If you use the supplementary handout, then turn to page 4, activity 3. Write topic sentences. I've given you like some blanks so that you can write the topic sentences with more space. So for number 1, you can imagine the whole paragraph is already given to you. You only need to write the first sentence for that. So please give it a try. So I give you like maybe 1 more minute to wrap up your phrases. So try to finish at least 2. I see actually most of you finished 2 or even 3. Make sure the topic sentence is a complete sentence. And so it's not like a subheading. A subheading should be a noun phrase, right? But a topic sentence is a complete sentence. And don't make a question, okay? Because in academic writing, we try not to ask, okay, our audience what they think. It's not a presentation. And so we avoid questions in academic writing as well. I will later give you a few suggested versions for each group, right, so that you can see the different ways of presenting the same meaning. Okay, so let's all look at the first one, okay, which is about, the comparison between a private room and a shared room, right? So you get this idea. Then here are some possible topic sentences that you may have. Right. Again, feel free to take a screenshot. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint slide because I want to let you have a try. Right? So the answer versions are not in there. Right? So take a screenshot if you want to, or write it down. You can see that I give you different terms, right? Somehow you don't need to keep repeating the phrase private room, shared room all over the passage. You may say an individual room, as long as the meaning is kept. You can change it a little bit. And then instead of saying there are some differences, you can start by saying the differences between a private room and a shared room are twofold. Okay, twofold is a rather useful word. So you may consider using in the future as well. It's like 两方面, 两方面. Okay, so it's like there are 2 aspects. And then if there are not just 2, then multifold. Or you can simply say there are some differences between a private room and a shared room. Or you change it to a gerund between living alone and sharing a room with others. So that is how you can avoid using the same term in all 5 paragraphs, starting from the introduction until the very end. So that is rephrasing. Or like we can say different types of rooms. Instead of differences, we change it to an adjective, or various types of rooms expose both advantages and drawbacks. This is what this passage is like. So you can this time use like merits and limitations. And then we give you different terms like advantages, benefits, merits. As for disadvantages, you can say drawbacks, limitations, shortcomings, demerits, detriments. And then the next one is about reasons. And so I think you at least need to make sure the topic sentence has the word reasons. You don't simply say, like, people love chocolate, full stop. Okay, then people don't know this paragraph is actually about elaborating on the reasons why people love chocolate. So people love chocolate due to different reasons, or 3 reasons. Just now you learned the word twofold or multifold, this time threefold, right? So the reasons why chocolate is popular or is likable of threefold. And then some synonyms. We mentioned that yesterday, right? Numerous. You can say there are numerous reasons, there are several reasons, there are multiple reasons that people love chocolate, or why people love chocolate. As for the last one, it's about the quality of a roommate. So you need to highlight that, right? What an ideal roommate is like. Okay, or the quality that people look for in a roommate. So that is the core idea. So an ideal roommate needs to respect others' routine and keep the room tidy. The word to can be omitted because it's repeated here. Or if you put the quality at the beginning, as like a noun at the beginning, the subject position, and use ing form, respecting others is the quality people look for in a roommate, or being respectful is the quality people look for. So all clear? And then When you're finished, you can look at the next part on the slide. Concluding sentence. Concluding sentence here means the last sentence in the passage. So somehow I don't want you just to repeat the topic sentence, right? Of course, you can wrap up, but there are different things that you can write about. You can present your opinion again if it is an argumentative essay, like these health benefits show that exercise is not a waste of time. Or you make some logical prediction after you've mentioned all the health benefits, and you say when people see these or understand these health benefits, they may want to exercise more. Or you give a piece of advice, like therefore it is recommended that people exercise regularly, right, to obtain these benefits. So that is how you link the things, like in this case, the health benefits you have mentioned. Okay, so you don't just repeat what is being mentioned before. Right? So a concluding sentence can be about reinforcing the opinion, making a prediction, or giving advice. Can you try to identify the best concluding sentence based on, imagine like the topic sentence is this: a shared room offers students a more social experience. Like, what would be the best concluding sentence in the same paragraph here? Giving you 1 minute to decide that. Okay, so what is your answer? C, very good. Okay, and also students on Zoom also got it correct. So these examples illustrate, like, so highlight the phrase, these example illustrate, it would be a good way to sum up what you have mentioned. Yeah, and the word illustrate is also a nice reporting verb. It's a little different from show. Maybe in the next few sections, I would talk about that. Like illustrate is like you have given some sort of evidence, and then you have something to support what you say, and then you use the word illustrate. Right? So these examples illustrate how much more social a shared room can be. Like some other answers are not correct because the information is not given. Don't add new information in the concluding sentence. And now a little bit of a test to you. Since time is limited, I want you to try to work on either one of them. Of course, if you have done both of them, that would be nice. Okay, but I give you only like 2 to 3 minutes. I try to finish at least one. Okay, and then we'll go through the answers. You can choose. One is about in New York being culturally diverse, and then the other one is about technology helping people learn. You have seen them in the previous exercise. Now write a concluding sentence. You don't just copy and paste the topic sentence. So remember, like you can rephrase it a little bit. And these are the examples. Give logical prediction, give a piece of advice, or sum up, at least do a bit of paraphrasing. And so one advice to you, right, it's like for the term culturally diverse, maybe it's a little hard to paraphrase, but if possible, rephrase that. Okay, so that you don't just repeat these English terms again and again in the same paragraph. So have you finished at least one sentence? And so one concluding sentence. I see some answers on Zoom as well. And let me see. Well, the first one, you already get that is about like New York being culturally diverse, and then the middle part would be the different examples. So to wrap up, one way you can check your answers. Again, I put everything here, you can take a screenshot. It's like it can be seen that, or you use the phrase I just mentioned, these examples illustrate that, right? Or these show that, these demonstrate that. And then how to paraphrase culturally diverse, actually just using the words you already know. Like New York City is a city that has different cultures, or is an international cities, or there are many diverse cultures, various cultures in New York. Yeah, so use different wording to present that. Yeah, so some of you on Zoom also mentioned like dynamic is also a good word. And then question 2, so you can use a connecting phrase like therefore, hence. These are also good words to signal as a concluding sentence. Like technology facilitates learning, promotes learning, enhances learning. Or acquiring new knowledge is easy in today's world when people use technology. Or I see a pretty good answer on Zoom. It's like technology plays an important role in improving people's learning ability. And so you kind of rephrase the idea in your own words. Then the last one, I also having a nice word, boost the efficiency. Boost the learning efficiency. Okay, so one thing to let you know, when you talk about knowledge, don't say learn knowledge. You can learn something, learn English, or learn how to write, but then you don't learn knowledge. Right? So you say you acquire knowledge, or gain knowledge, or obtain knowledge. And so these are some word collocation that you need to take care of. All right, so you now understand how to wrap up the body paragraphs. We move on to the final bit, the conclusion. Yeah, so the conclusion actually would restate the thesis. Restate means like you reinforce your thesis statement in the introduction. If you remember structure 4 that you chose, the best structure. So actually in the conclusion, you would restate the thesis statement. So when you restate that, you may need to change the order of the phrases. You use synonyms, words with similar meaning, or you use different word forms. So here is an example. Like in the introduction, you have a thesis statement like this. Exercise is essential because it improves overall physical and mental health. Then in the conclusion, instead of repeating it exactly, you can say due to the mental and physical health benefits brought by doing exercise, it is crucial to exercise regularly. You see that the subject position is replaced by something different, and then the sentence structure looks different as well. And this is one example, like in the introduction, This is the thesis statement. Can you choose the best option? What would be the restated thesis in the conclusion? Like, choose one out of the 4 options. Remember, we won't add new information. We just restate it in the conclusion. Okay, many answers already appear on Zoom. Hey, what about you all in the classroom? Do you get the answer? What's it? D, very good. Okay. And it is vital, again, highlight this phrase. And somehow it's like you reinforce the point, right? So it is vital. So you replace somebody should do something, or it is advised, it is recommended. And then for apartments to offer them with quiet study areas. So we won't write B. B may be like a further recommendation. But if you have never mentioned like this is something the apartment managers should do not add that in the conclusion suddenly. And then to wrap up today's practice, can you try this this time, especially if you didn't get everything correct in the introduction reordering exercise? I see if you can get it correct this time. So this is the conclusion. And then reorder that. Now you can write down 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, the 4 little boxes here, okay, to see how it would make sense in the conclusion paragraph. And in this way, you also learn how we write a conclusion. Okay, so it seems that this time you're more cautious, but then actually the accuracy rate is higher. At least everyone on Zoom actually got it correct. Okay, so the answer is 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? So the first one, I guess you get it, right? This essay has argued that this is definitely a restated thesis. And so you repeat the thesis statement. And so it's a restated thesis statement. And then after that, you would restate your main points. You want to talk about a cognitive linguistic approach. You support that. Of course, you would mention how great this approach is. And then you still need to highlight this method may not be completely effective, maybe acknowledge the potential limitations. And so at the end, you would give some sort of recommendation, what the future researchers can do, the future research direction. So you kind of reinforce, given the potential limitations, a cognitive linguistic approach appears to be useful for many students still. And it is recommended that we check this approach further to make sure it's really useful for more students. And hopefully with these samples, you will see that the structure is rather standardized. That's one. And the second is introduction and conclusion is never like a one-line summary. We need to give sufficient information to our readers. And somehow the stance is always repeated. Okay, but then we need to repeat it in strategic ways so that it doesn't sound repetitive. And that's why you need to broaden your vocabulary, use different connecting words to signal the information. Okay, so that is a little bit about reading and writing today. And you can see that on the final slide of this handout. I asked you to form a group and then do some sort of arranging. And then this time it's like arranging paragraphs is a big task. That's why I asked you to be in groups. We'll do that first thing next lesson. Okay, so you don't need to worry about forming grouping because maybe you form a group today and then tomorrow the student has not come. Okay, then so we do it tomorrow when everyone is here. Okay, so thank you for coming. I'll see you again tomorrow.